1 out of 3 people watching this video could have become a millionaire in the past decades, following the 7 money habits we're about to show you. And at the end, you'll know exactly if you are one of them, and how otherwise you could become it. It's not luck and it's not some big dramatic move, it's habits, tiny ones, repeated consistently. And the interesting part is this: most people don't even realize how powerful the right habits are. Not big income, not grinding harder, just habits. Simple behaviors that quietly shape your financial future, whether you notice or not. If you set them up now, your future self might actually be shocked at how different your life looks 5, 10, or 20 years from today. So if you've ever wondered where long-term wealth actually comes from, this is the stuff that tends to make the difference. Before we get into the 7 habits, if you want to support the channel, go ahead and like the video. It genuinely helps the content reach more people. And if you enjoy conversations about money, long-term thinking, and building financial freedom, consider subscribing for more. Alright, let's get into it. First and most basic habit: find out where all your money goes. It's funny how so many people assume wealth is about earning more, but over time, the real shift usually happens when someone finally starts paying attention to where the money actually goes. Not obsessively, not with spreadsheets, just with awareness. Most people leak money in tiny ways they barely notice. Subscriptions they forgot about, impulse purchases, food delivery, random treat-yourself moments, small lifestyle upgrades that stack up, and none of these things are bad. But what people often don't realize is that the difference between someone who slowly gets ahead and someone who stays stuck is usually just awareness. The people who build wealth don't necessarily spend less, they just spend intentionally. They know where their money flows and they choose the flows on purpose. And the interesting part? Once you start noticing your patterns, the habits sort of adjust themselves. People naturally start thinking, do I actually want this? Is this really worth it? Would I rather have the money later instead of this thing now? Not because of guilt, not because of restriction, but because they finally see the trade-offs clearly. Over time, that awareness compounds. It doesn't make you rich overnight, but it slowly clears the financial fog that most people live in. And once the fog lifts, decisions get simpler, calmer, and smarter. So if there was one habit that quietly sets the whole foundation, it's this one. And the first thing it usually gives you is simply more savings. Habit number 2, paying yourself first no matter the amount. There's a fascinating behavior you'll see in people who grow wealthy. They treat saving or investing as a non-negotiable bill, not something they try to do if there's money left. Because most people know how that goes, there's never money left. Life expands to fill the space. The people who build wealth over time flip the order. They take a small percentage, maybe 5%, maybe 10%, maybe more. And they move it out of reach the moment money comes in. Not later, not when they feel motivated, right away. And the interesting thing about paying yourself first is that the exact amount doesn't matter as much as the consistency. Even small amounts grow shockingly large over the long term. This habit forces your lifestyle to adjust around what's left. Most people think that would feel restrictive, but it usually has the opposite effect. Life starts to feel lighter because the stress of "I should be saving" finally disappears. You're no longer negotiating with yourself every month. It's automated. It's done. And when you do this for years, not months, but years, the growth becomes noticeable. You begin to see real progress. Your first few thousand, your first 10,000, then more. And that progress creates momentum. People who build wealth slowly aren't usually more disciplined. They're just system builders. They set up routines that take care of their future selves automatically. And the best part, almost no one ever regrets saving more. So habit 1 was being aware of your useless expenses, and habit 2 was to start savings consistently, any amount of money. Habit 3, making time your financial partner instead of enemy. If there's one thing wealthy people truly understand, it's time. Not hustle, not luck, not the right moment. Time. Money behaves differently when it has space to grow. Think about compounding, earning interest on money, then earning interest on that interest, and so on. At first it feels slow, painfully slow, but then the curve starts to bend upward. The people who never get rich usually underestimate how powerful that slow growth becomes. The people who do get rich learn to respect the waiting period. They invest consistently, even when it feels like nothing is happening. They give their money years to grow. They don't panic when the market dips. They don't celebrate too early when it rises. They understand the long game. People sometimes think investing is about predicting what will happen next. But the truth is, long-term wealth is mostly about patience. It's about surviving the ups and downs without getting emotional. It's about staying in the game longer than others. When time is on your side, the habits don't need to be perfect. They just need to exist. For example, in March 2020, everyone thought it was crazy to invest in the S&P 500, but guess what? Now at the end of 2025, if you invested in the S&P 500 at any time before 2025, you have more money than you invested. Get it? 2024, 2020, 2008, 1990? Doesn't matter. Time did the work. So the first habit was to find the money you waste, and the second was to save it. Third, invest it. Habit 4. Living slightly below your means even when you don't have to. This one doesn't sound exciting, but it might be the biggest long-term wealth habit of all. People who grow wealthy tend to create a small gap between what they earn and how they live. Not a miserable gap, not a never spend money gap. Just enough space to build margin, and the key word is margin. Margin creates options. Margin makes emergencies feel less dramatic. Margin lowers stress. Margin lets you invest. Some people raise their lifestyle every time their income rises. Others don't. They might upgrade occasionally, but they don't do it automatically. And that tiny difference between automatic upgrades and intentional upgrades creates huge long-term outcomes. The people who build wealth think, just because I can afford it doesn't mean I need it right now. They delay lifestyle jumps until they're permanent, and because of that, they stay ahead of the curve financially. Living below your means isn't about restriction. It's about maintaining control over your financial trajectory. It's about designing a life where you're not constantly one purchase away from stress. So you understand habit number 4, lower your expenses. Habit 5, avoiding bad debt and using good debt carefully. People often say avoid all debt, but wealthy people don't actually do that. They're just very selective about which debt they allow into their lives. Bad debt? They stay away from it. That's the stuff that drains you. High-interest credit cards, impulsive loans, purchases that lose value instantly. Good debt? They use it strategically, not recklessly, strategically. Good debt is the kind that helps you build assets. Things that hold value or grow value. Real estate, businesses, education that actually increases earning potential. Tools that create income. They think about debt like a tool, not a shortcut. And just like any tool, if you use it the wrong way, it can hurt you. But used carefully, it can accelerate progress. The core habit here is simply being intentional about what you borrow for. The wealthy tend to ask, will this debt pay me back in some way? If the answer is no, they're cautious. Not scared, just cautious. Debt isn't the enemy. Unexamined debt is. So, step 5, get rid of bad debt and consider good debt. Habit 6, constantly building skills that increase your earning power. Wealth isn't only about saving and investing. A big piece of the puzzle is increasing your ability to earn more over time. The people who build wealth tend to treat skill building like a lifelong project, not a one-time event. Not something they did in school and left behind. They pick up new abilities. They learn things that make them more valuable at work or in business. They become the kind of people others rely on, and that naturally increases their income potential. This doesn't have to be dramatic. Most useful skills are not. Communication, negotiation, technology, time management, basic financial literacy, problem solving, leadership. Even learning how to stay calm under pressure is a valuable skill. Income grows when you grow, and the habit of continuous improvement, done slowly, consistently, tends to create opportunities that didn't exist before. The people who build wealth don't wait for life to give them a raise, since we all know how that often ends up. They create the conditions for it instead. So you understand habit 6, increase your income potential. Habit 7, thinking long-term when everyone else thinks short-term. This might be the habit that ties all the others together. People who grow wealthy don't chase fast results. They don't need everything to pay off immediately. They make decisions that might not feel great today but will pay off massively in 5 or 10 years. They understand that the long term is where wealth actually comes from. Not from sudden windfalls, not from perfect timing, not from secret hacks. Long-term thinking influences everything. How they spend, how they save, how they invest, how they choose opportunities, how they handle setbacks, how they manage risk. They're okay with slow progress. They're okay with being patient. They're okay with being misunderstood by people chasing quick wins. And because they think long-term, they make decisions that age well. They avoid the traps most people fall into. And eventually, time rewards them. Long-term thinkers almost always end up wealthier than short-term thinkers, simply because they let their choices compound. To give you an idea, more than 1/3 of Western people can or could save at least $10 a day. That money in a safe investment or average return of 10% like the S&P 500 would have made more than $1 million in the past 35 years, and the same formula applies if you start today. See? Simply consistency, and obviously the more you invest and the better the return, the faster that 35 years for 1 million reaches 30, 25, 20, maybe even 10 years. Consistency beats hard work in this case. So those are 7 habits that tend to make people wealthier over time. 1. Knowing where their money goes. 2. Paying themselves first. 3. Letting time and compounding work for them. 4. Living slightly below their means. 5. Being careful with debt. 6. Continuously improving their skills. 7. Thinking long-term instead of seeking quick wins. None of these habits are flashy. None of them feel like hacks, but taken together and repeated consistently, they reshape someone's entire financial trajectory. Not overnight, but eventually. If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe for more content like this. Videos that make you think differently about money, mindset, and long-term freedom. And for the comments today, here's a question. Which of these 7 habits do you feel would change your life the most if you strengthened it this year? I'd love to hear your thoughts because everyone's situation is different, and your perspective might help someone else watching this. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next video.